Not much, man. How are you?
I'm good. I had to take those glasses off. I think they're Jenny Lou's reading glasses, so they're women. They're colored. Hang on, I do gotta check something here. Oh yeah, this meeting's being recorded. Got it. So
Uh,
what's happening, man? You
Looks like you got a haircut recently. Did you get a haircut recently?
it's been about a month, but yeah, I've been
Well, it looks
keeping.
nice.
Well, thanks. A little messed up right now, man, but that's all right. It's just two guys talking, and yeah, I've been wearing it kind of a lot shorter for the past year.
I've been wearing it short since say Jill and I started dating in 2013, and then 2013, 2014 it was a little longer, but I think probably about 2015 is when I started keeping it this short.
Well, man, you remember how long mine was?
Yeah, I do.
Super, which is crazy.
I mean, I like it. It looks good, man.
Yeah, I was wanting to be a rock star, man. My years were gone by, and I was trying to recapture the moment.
Yeah.
I pretty much had long hair for most of my life, but it was time to cut it, do something different.
Yeah.
I didn't want to have like Santa Claus long hair.
Can you grow a beard?
I can. It just doesn't connect right here.
Yeah,
But if my hair's a little longer, I can kind of pull it down. Yeah, I can grow right in all in here.
there you go. Well, I
Uh,
can't.
but
It's patchy. It's patchy.
oddly enough, I didn't even start shaving until I was 24.
I kind of started at 16, but I really didn't have to really start shaving till my early 20s.
Yeah, I mean, I had that little peach fuzz stuff I had to
Yeah.
knock out, but I was like, man, this isn't even right. Because so by the time I actually started to grow one, it was already getting gray hair, and I was like, this isn't even cool. uh,
I've got found I've got like a you know bits and pieces of my hair starting to gray, and I one day I was looking in the mirror and I was like, is that a gray hair in my nose? It was like I had a gray nose hair.
oh, that
So
was that was
I had to
that was
flake all
probably a
that.
fluke thing. Um,
It's growing back. I can tell you see it starting. It's
so
noticeable too.
how long have we known each other? 10 years?
20, did we meet in 2014?
I
It
don't
was
know. I'm
either
asking back.
2014 or 15. It's almost a decade now.
Well,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
remember my hair was a lot darker then,
Yeah.
and it's hard to remember.
Yeah.
But so if it were close to 10 years ago, it was
It was maybe like it was grayish, but it was
it
still there had
grayish. Yeah, it's still
yeah.
dark. Yeah, it looked not patches, but it was kind of
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah, it was coming in.
And then I don't know, man. I guess about 4 years ago, it's just like I woke up one day and I went, "Oh my gosh,
well,
what
well,
happened?"
dad's really started early because his by I think right around by 88, 1988, his was completely gray. So he was 49. He was born in 49, so he was like in his 30s, like yeah,
Oh yeah, he premature,
late
right?
30s. Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember Bud York?
I've heard the name, but I didn't know Bud. No.
Bud went to Highlands later on, Church of Highlands later on, but
Hmm.
he died in March of 2020, whenever the coronavirus thing
COVID,
started. And
March. It was in March. Yeah.
yeah, and Bud was going gray in high school. And by the time
Oh
he was
wow,
like 24, 25, I don't, it was almost pretty solid gray.
wow.
And so, some people just have a predisposition to
Yeah,
gray
gray hair.
prematurely. My dad had blonde hair, and you couldn't really tell the transition until he was like in his late 60s.
Uh
Now, my mom, I think she may have colored it
huh.
because I think
Yeah.
I got the gray. I think I got the gray stuff from her. I went gray a lot quicker than my siblings.
My mom definitely dyes her hair. For the longest time, I didn't think that she did, but probably in the late 60s, early 70s is when she started dyeing it.
Yeah, yeah. And I got to be honest with you, I did it a couple of times and it was a mistake because the color just didn't work out and I couldn't get it out of my hair. And
Uh-huh.
I had to own it until I
Right.
could figure out a way to get someone to help me because it was terrible, man.
Oh, yeah, is that bad?
Yeah, and I just said, I forget it. I'll have to show you a picture. I got a picture somewhere. But I was like, oh well, what am I going to do? I mean, I can't, you know, go cut all my hair off, which I could have shaved it. But
Yeah. Well, yeah.
you
I've
know, we all want to be the younger looking and all that, and sometimes, I wish I were back about 24, 25. But then I look at life and I go, well, I'd like to think that if I did it again, I'd be a lot smarter.
yeah,
But I'm
me
not
too.
sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if I had my mindset now with my youth back then, I think I would do it better, but there's no guarantees.
No,
Plus,
because you get in that environment, and then all of a sudden, even though you've had this wisdom for you, if you could just reverse it,
yeah,
you got all this wisdom from all the stupid mistakes,
yeah,
but it doesn't matter when you get caught up in the moment with things.
yes,
The impulsive thoughts
yes,
just
yes.
override that
It
wisdom.
does. It really does. I mean, it's emotional intelligence versus actual intelligence. I mean, you could be book smart and be really intelligent, but if emotionally you got the intelligence of a 2-year-old, I mean, it won't take much for you to kind of do something that you're not supposed to do.
Well, that's interesting you say that because my EQ
Hmm.
is high.
Oh,
Yeah.
really?
Yes, I made a lot of mistakes though, so I don't understand that. But
Right.
also, I've always been skeptical, and I'm not so sure that's a bad thing.
No,
Um,
it's not.
I mean, not like discounting what someone's saying all the time,
Yeah.
but it kind of registers in my head. I'm like, I'm a little skeptic of that.
Well,
So it kept
you've
me out of
dealt
a
with a
lot
lot
more
of
trouble.
risk. Yeah, and throughout your career, even from a professional standpoint, you've dealt in scenarios that involve risk. So obviously, that just comes with the territory when you're learning risk management that it you can't control it. It just kind of pops. It's like an instinct. You just feel it. You
Yes, that's
know?
right. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I know that I got that from my mom. Uh,
yeah.
and I'm not sure. I may have been born with it. I'll tell you one thing I was born with was good directions. I'm good with directions.
Really.
Maybe I wasn't born with it, but my mom, we used to go to when I was little, 2, 3 years old. Um, Even before that, but I mean, that's my earliest recollection. We
Hmm.
drive to Lafette, Alabama, because that's where
Okay.
she grew up, and
That's outside of Auburn, isn't it?
that's correct. Yeah,
Opelika. Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah. That's what I thought. That's what I thought.
northeast, Chambers County,
Yeah.
and
But
so every time she and I would go up there, her mom was still alive then. I think I was 2
hmm.
when my grandmother died, so I really didn't know her. I do
Right.
recall going to her funeral. I remember that.
Yeah.
But so when we would drive up there, she would always tell me, pay attention to where we're going. I want you to just learn how to drive up here. Like 2 years old. I'm like, oh. So every time we went up, she'd say the same thing. And then one day she said, tell me how to get there. I told her, spot on.
Wow. That's cool.
And it was a
That's
lot of
really
bobbing and
cool.
weaving because they didn't
Yeah.
have those outer loops in Auburn then.
Right.
You went to
Right.
Auburn and cut through,
Right.
and then you would go into Lafayette, but you had to, which was a very small town, but
Yeah.
that's where they shot the movie, or a good bit of it, Mississippi Burning.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Huh.
I was an extra.
You were?
Sure was.
Huh.
I got cut though. The film, I was so excited about it.
Yeah.
They
That's
made me
cool.
cut my hair real short, put me in these little tight looking clothes, and
Yeah.
I
Huh.
took Clark to the movie, and
Uh-huh.
I'm so excited to see. I was like, "This is coming up. I know this. I remember this. It's about to come up." Never saw me.
Oh, man. Yeah. Well, did you know that, like, how it actually works? They'll film it, and then the editors will
That is it, right?
decide whether they want to keep it or cut it. That's cool, man.
Oh, dude, I could tell you some stories, but I don't want to throw anybody under the bus. But I'll tell you what did happen. One night they were doing a night shoot,
Uh-huh.
and Gene Hackman was in it, and Willem Dafoe,
Yep. Yep.
the two main characters.
Right.
And I was with some buddies, and there was some shenanigans going on earlier on with us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you read between the lines there. We're
Yeah.
having a good time. How about that?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I got to meet Gene Hackman first,
Oh,
and
wow. Yeah.
yeah, and believe it or not, super super nice guy, but he looks heavy on film, right? He looks
Right.
heavy.
Yeah.
He was very slender. He was about 6'2". It's just the way his body's built. He was a
Right.
tall guy,
Yeah.
but he was really really pleasant. And
Yeah.
but one of my buddies who'd had, like, if one was good, 10, 20 was better. I
Right.
hit
Yeah.
that 20 mark. He
Yeah.
had him cornered, like close talking him.
Oh,
I
no.
was like, oh my gosh. Gene Hackman just stood there and talked with him until
Wow.
finally someone called him off. But then, so I kind of walked away, and I ended up with Willem Dafoe. And this was at night. And he broke out a pack of cigarettes. I just walked up and said, hey, how you doing? I'm an extra in this movie. I'm very excited about it. And I told him what it was, blah, blah, blah. And he said, yeah, nice to meet you, Joel. And it was just two of us. We were standing between these two cars. And he broke out a pack of Marlboro Reds, which I'd actually quit at 19. I quit smoking cigarettes.
Yeah.
Um, but I smoked one then because he said, you
Right.
want one? And I was like, oh gosh, I'll be buying a pack tomorrow.
Yeah.
And, but no, I smoked old Marlboro Red with Willem Dafoe. We had a great talk. And one of the funniest things that happened, and I'm not going to mention his name either, but you know him very well, and he's one of my very best friends. And he was at Auburn at the time. And this was the same night, because I remember now it was a night shoot. This was a night shoot. So my buddy, your buddy,
Mm.
well, 3, 4, 5 sheets in the wind.
Yeah.
Different guy than that guy that had Hackman cornered.
Yeah.
Well, they were all in the car. They were in the car. You had Gene Hackman and Willem Foe, and they were in the back seat, and two guys driving this car. And our good buddy proceeded to walk out there right when they'd called action. So they were filming. He walked right up to the car and stuck his hand in there and said, hey, I'm so how y'all doing? And the director was like, cut,
Director.
cut, cut. Who is this guy? And my buddy, who is very smart and very, very successful,
Yeah.
and you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
He used to be a little heavier. Now he's pretty in good shape.
Yeah.
So there you go. He just kept talking to him. And they were like, fine. I was like, I'm about to say his name. I'm trying not to. I was like,
Yeah. I
hey,
know who that.
come back. Come
Okay, yeah.
back.
Come back here, kid, over here. Right.
They had someone come out there and walk him off. He was like, well, man, I was just talking with the guys, the actors out there. I mean, what's the big deal?
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. It was fun though. But yeah.
Would he remember that story if you told
Oh, yeah. Are you kidding me? We still laugh
it?
about that.
I got you. I got you.
Yeah, it was hilarious. It wasn't embarrassing to me. I just was laughing.
No.
That was funny. Who cared?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, Lafayette, Alabama. That's so they did a good bit of that there, and I think they did actually shoot some in Mississippi and maybe somewhere else. But
I think they did
it's
a
a
little in
small town.
Opelika too, didn't they?
They may have. I'm pretty sure they stayed somewhere in a hotel
Right.
in Auburn or Opelika because there's
Yeah.
nothing fat. There's only
Yeah.
about
No.
2,000
There's
people.
really not anything there now.
No, it's gotten. I mean, over the years, it's just gone way down population size.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we
Yeah,
had the bank had a gas station that we did a loan on out there that was out that way. That's why I remember where it is, because I rode with one of the bankers out there just to, do a site visit on it. So
yeah, it's not a big place by
no.
any stretch. But my mom was a cheerleader at Lafayette High School, and
Really?
yeah, she and her
Yeah.
sister,
Okay.
and she actually graduated at 16. They
Uh-huh.
bumped her up um, to her older sister's age, which was 2 years, so she graduated at 16.
And that's
And
what my mom, she went to high school or grade school, whatever, however, what it was. Like she was early going to school when she actually went to school in Thailand. Um,
I think they did a lot of that stuff back then. Well, depending on where you were, if she was in
yeah,
Thailand, you probably graduated 14, 15.
yeah,
Who knows? Because they
yeah,
needed you to work, and
yeah.
same kind of thing with her. But she was really smart. She actually
Mm.
had a scholarship to what's now Sanford. Um, I'm trying to think of the name of the college. Anyway, it doesn't matter. She married my dad instead. Oh, Lefty,
So was
he was
now,
21. He was robbing the cradle.
was Lefty originally from Montgomery?
And my dad was from Roanoke, which is just about 20 miles north of Lafayette, northeast, right there.
How do you but you grew up in Montgomery, so how'd they end up in Montgomery?
Well, they ended up in Montgomery for a short stint. My dad was working for a company. I can't remember who it was, but they may have been in Montgomery about a year when two of my sisters were born. Maybe my brother was born too. And then they moved to Columbus because my dad went to work for Nehi, or Royal Crown Cola. I'm sorry, Royal
Hmm.
Crown Cola. Nehi was one of their products. And I know I've told you the story before, but I didn't know this was actually the fact. I thought he introduced the first canned cola for Royal Crown,
Hmm.
like a canned Coke,
Yeah,
aluminum.
yeah, yeah. Aluminum can,
Well,
yeah.
he actually was the first person to introduce the canned cola, and he did it in New York.
Really?
Mhm, sure did.
That's really cool.
I didn't know that. I
I
really
mean,
didn't
that's
know that
just
until about a month ago. My sister
yeah,
put something. We're in a big group text message thing, and
yeah.
she sent this article out about. And I'm not gonna tell you my dad's real name because he may come down from heaven and just slap the snot out of me. He did not like it at all.
Right. Yeah.
And of course, lefty because he was left everything. Wrote left, threw left. He was a pitcher.
Gotcha.
Played for the Atlanta Crackers, which is not a very good name, but
Were they a
yeah,
minor league team?
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, and so he'd been called Lefty his whole life, and then he had
Ah,
alias names though, and
gotcha.
never told you this. So here's how the structure went. He was Lefty to his family and his very close friends. I mean, siblings, all that, nephews, nieces. He was Lefty.
Gotcha.
To his second tier buddies, he was Sandy,
Okay.
and well, two reasons. One, he had blonde hair, sandy blonde hair. It was really blonde,
Right. Right.
but also Sanders, right?
Yeah.
Those were his second tier friends. When he got into the third tier, he was Bill.
Okay.
His first three letters of his real name was WIL, and but it wasn't William. I'll just tell you anyway. It was Will Byrne, not Will Burr.
Wilburn.
Will
Yeah.
Byrne.
No, I've heard that name. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, his middle name was Finus, Finus,
Uh-huh.
not Phineas, but Finus.
Finest. Huh.
He, if you ever said that name to him, he would lose it. So and so anyway, so his fourth tier name was William. So
Gotcha.
if
Yeah.
anybody ever called and I answered, or anybody in the family answered, if it was Lefty, we knew it was his
Yeah.
close friends, he'd take the call.
Yeah.
If anybody called and asked for Sandy, he may take it.
Yeah.
If anybody called for Bill, he'd want
A little
us
bit
to
more
engage in
info.
the conversation and get a
Yeah.
little more information. If
Yeah.
anybody called for William, it was this. No, no, not kidding you.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no caller ID back then, so that's the only way that if you really get touches, you call on that landline, so they're calling. So the ones
That's
that
right.
actually know, yeah, that's how you know. Well, growing up, I didn't always go by James. I started going by that when I was 16.
You went by
Because I got
Mac.
no, I actually went by Jimmy.
Hmm.
Yep,
I didn't know
yep,
that.
yeah. So anybody that actually knew me or grew up with me, like in the bank world, every now and then a customer will come by and I'll say, "Hey Jimmy, how's it going?" And everybody will start looking at me. It's like Jimmy. It's like that's from high school.
That's funny. I didn't know that. Where'd
Yeah,
Mac come from?
that's my middle name,
MAC?
MAC.
So James McHawk, that's it. It's not
Yep,
like
that's it.
McKenzie or
No, no, that's
uh,
my middle name. Yeah,
yeah.
I think my dad always jokingly said that I was named after that song Jimmy Mac by Martha and the Vandellas.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's actually true because the Jimmy Mac that it's spelled MACK, but yeah,
Well, I like the uniqueness of just MAC.
yeah, yeah.
That's you don't see that
I
much.
have no idea why. Hopefully, Mom would remember why they picked that specific MAC as my middle name.
Well, they may have
But
misspelled it on your birth certificate and they just left it.
no, I think there was a reason. I think there was a reason why they picked that because Dad's James Thomas, and then the cool thing is that you got Evie James, and then you got Bishop Thomas. So
Bishop, yeah. Well, I have a bishop in my family too, so just like your son. And by the way, your children are absolutely beautiful, just
oh,
gorgeous. And you can
thank you
tell the
so much.
wheels are turning in those kids' heads. They're going to be
Oh yeah,
smart. And
they are. I know
and what a
Evie is,
great
but
combination of ethnicity, man. I mean,
oh
that
yeah,
sometimes that works out just incredibly
it
beautiful, doesn't it?
it does. It does. I have a really handsome son, and he's very funny and charismatic. I mean, I really love Dad. I know would absolutely love Evie, but he would love Bishop too because he's
But
just a funny
Is
little boy.
Evie's beautiful, brother.
He is.
And trust me, I know about having beautiful girls, and you're good right now. When 14 rolls around, we'll talk. Actually, we'll talk a year ahead.
Yeah. I
Um,
I I may not have any biological brothers and sisters, but I've got a lot of, or even I've got a lot of uncles and aunts. May
would be
not be
kind
by
of
blood, but
it'd be kind of interesting to know if you did though have any
yeah,
biological. I don't know how you do that.
probably
Although
21 in me or one of those things,
23 me.
23 in me. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah,
Or
I don't want my DNA out there. I don't want to be framed.
ancestry.com. No, I don't want it either. That's why I'm on my word.
Um, anyway, so what we gonna talk about today, buddy? We carried on a pretty good conversation about just general stuff, but you got anything in mind?
Well, no, just I guess for me, being in a sales role now, like from early part of this year, January till right around June, I was just in a funk, and I think more than anything else, it was more of maybe it was self doubt or just exhaustion from having to do so much in my previous role that now I've got just one thing to focus on. But now
Mhm.
I've kind of hit my groove and actually had a pretty good month for last month. But as far as like in your world, I mean, you kind of you eat what you kill. For you, when you first started out, was it hard at times? Did you have like a good network to kind of?
No. Mm-mm.
No.
It was hard. It was, well, I'm in a different industry now. I'm still financial
Right,
services, kind of under that umbrella, but insurance,
right.
employee benefits. But when I started out in the brokerage business, I was with Morgan Keegan, which is an investment firm based out of Memphis. And um, I can just tell you, I'll just be straight up. I mean, wasn't anybody in Montgomery was going to do business with me.
Right,
If they
right.
knew me or if they were parents of someone, that knew me, I mean, I got to be honest, I just wasn't a great student. And although I was always very cordial and very nice to people, I was raised that way.
Yeah,
But with that being said, I didn't want to burn those bridges quick. And so
Yeah.
I had to start making cold calls to people in other cities that they didn't know me. So if they hung up on me, it
Right.
wasn't going to hurt my feelings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although it kind of did at first.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously. Yeah.
But you kind of get over the hump. It becomes kind of funny, and then you kind of think through it after those kinds of things. But yeah, it was commission only, so you had to hustle, and the thing is you started over every month at zero,
Right.
and so that business model is completely almost like a dinosaur. It's
It
extinct,
is. It is.
and
Yep.
now it's kind of fee in lieu of commissions and
Yep.
fee based business, and
Yep. Assets under
that's
management, that type of stuff. Yeah.
right, exactly. Assets under management are everything.
Yeah.
Uh, no, I'm not going to mention anything, but I mean, I knew guys who were making $200,000 or $300,000 and only had about $5 million under management. You can do the math on that.
Yeah.
That's not very. I mean,
No.
that's a lot of turnover.
Yeah.
Um, and so we had one guy at early on. Matter of fact, right when I went on board with them, this particular guy was way ahead of the curve on fee-based business.
Yeah.
And now he came from money, so he had somewhat
He had
the
some reserves, some
ability to
capital.
write.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now some larger firms would put people on salary, right, for
Right.
a couple years,
Yeah.
and I could have had a salary for a year, but the first two calls, this is the honest truth.
Hmm.
I'm not kidding you. It was in Gadsden, Alabama. I just
Uh,
got back from training for 2 or 3 weeks. I can't remember, in Memphis,
yeah.
where
Yeah.
home office was. And so I found this old Gadsden phone book, just turned the page,
Yeah.
and flipped it open. It was yellow pages.
Yeah.
And I called, got this guy on the phone. I couldn't believe it. It was Alabama Power Preferred. It was paying like 7.75%.
Yeah.
I don't even know this guy. I just asked for the owner of the company.
Yeah.
His name was G.W. I'm not going to mention his last name. And so I opened an account with him the very first phone call I made.
Wow. That's
Okay.
unbelievable.
Now, I didn't even know how to fill out the paperwork.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm scrambling trying to, get someone to come in and help me.
Yeah.
And so there was an assistant that came in there and helped me, and she said, "Okay, tell me your first name." And he said GW. And she says, "Okay, well, what's G stand for?" And he said, G. All right. So is it just
That's
G,
your
the
legal
letter?
name? Yeah.
It is just G, the letter. That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So what's W stand for? He said W. And so she said, all right, hang on a second. So your
You're
name
telling me it's
is
GW.
2 letters, GW, and then his last name, which was a very
Right.
common name, but I'm not gonna say it.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
said, that's it. Well, we opened the account, got that, and then I made the second phone call
Right.
in Gadsden. This guy had a cell phone in his car.
Oh wow.
That was in 93, 92.
Right. Right.
Who had so? I mean, I don't remember
No,
very
not
many
that.
people,
No. No, not a lot of people.
but he was in a car. Yeah, later I found it was a Jaguar, but that's a whole nother story. But this guy had like 2 or 3 people with him, and they were headed down to the beach. And he had you could tell he had it on speakerphone. It's probably one of those mounted
Yeah.
old big phones, not a bag
Yeah.
phone, but it was a mounted
Yeah.
phone.
Right. Yeah.
And I guess you had to have some change to have a phone back then anyway. But I think he was just trying to big shot because they were all going to the beach together to play golf.
Right.
And he put me on speaker, and I didn't know I was on speaker at the time until I started hearing other people in the background. I was pitching him this idea,
Mm.
and he was like, hang on, guys, y'all listen to this.
Do you remember what the idea was? Was it some type
Yeah, it was
of?
actually a company called Rencor.
Uh-huh.
Rencor was a group that went out and made acquisitions of dialysis centers because there was a a law that came out called the Stark Law.
Uh-huh.
And what that did is prohibited, so who would that be? Urologist and maybe nephrologist. I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't. Well,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that sent people to dialysis centers. Well, a lot of these physicians and physician practices also owned these
Yeah.
dialysis centers,
It's kind of still the same
double
now.
dipping.
Yeah.
Right?
It's kind of same now. Yeah.
Well, may have switched back.
Yeah.
Well, they came out with a law that said they couldn't do it anymore. So
Huh.
what happened was this company formed to go out and buy all these dialysis centers from these physicians. So
Uh-huh.
it sounded great, man.
Yeah.
It sounded great, and I just gave it all I had. I pitched that thing as hard as I could, and
Yeah.
just like I was telling you, except I was more emphatic about it.
Yeah.
And everybody got quiet. It was like, they're listening to me, man. And I think I'm 24, and I mean, skinny as a rail. I'm 250 now. I was about 150 then,
Yeah.
and like a full body less, body less. And if they had seen me in this
Right.
cheap suit I was wearing, man, they wouldn't have bought anything from me.
Right. Yes. Yes.
But that was the beauty of it,
Right.
is I didn't meet three-quarters of my clients till 5, 6 years later. I didn't have
That's
time to
okay.
drive places.
Right. Yeah.
But so the second phone call I made to open an account. I'm
That's
like,
cool.
this is like taking candy from a baby.
Yeah. It's
It
like what you
went
don't know.
downhill after that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Uh,
It's like what you
it went.
didn't know. It's like, oh yeah, I got two in a row. I'm like, kill it the rest of the month.
Well, that's, and it was a struggle. It was a struggle every
Yeah.
month, and I got so confident in myself that I was going to make more money if I was on commissions. So the
Right.
original thing I started with is I could have been on salary for a year, year and a half,
Right.
but I got off of that. Uh, so they paid for 3 months while I trained and studied to
Mm.
take my Series 7, and
Yeah.
back then it was a 63 and something else. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Securities license. And so they paid me for 3 months to study. And tell you the truth, man, I couldn't believe I even passed it on the first time. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, maybe I'm a little smarter than I thought. I just thought I was that smart. And but anyway, so the after 3 months studying passing, I had to go to training for 2 or 3 weeks. And I came back, I opened those first two accounts. I didn't get paid off of it
Right.
because I was still in salary. And
I
so
see.
I thought then I'm gonna go one more, I'm gonna go a full month and see what happens, see what I could
Right.
make. And
Yeah.
I would have made more that month. I did than I was on salary. So at the end of it, that month, I told him I just wanted to go straight commission, which was not a good idea
Yeah. Yeah.
because, like I said, it just got harder and hard, and and I'd go home and I'm like a week away from them the commission cut off, and I may have had like $700 coming in.
Yeah.
I'm married and I have Hunter,
Yeah.
Hunter's in the mix, and I'm like, oh gosh, I thought about going back to them. But I was so confident, and they were really encouraging me, like, wow, Joe, this is great. You're going to do great in this business.
Yeah.
First of all, I know I told you this was the worst interview any human being has ever done in their life. I mean, I had to stop the whole interview process because I didn't know
Right.
what they were asking me. I didn't know what they were talking about.
Right.
And my heart was coming through my chest. And I thought for sure, I told them, I said, I'm so sorry for wasting y'all's time, blah, blah, blah. And they said, well, they started laughing. I was like, man, these guys are laughing. This isn't even funny. I mean,
Right.
it was really, my hands were like dripping wet.
Oh gosh.
And I was sweating through my suit. I never even sweat back then, but I was that day. And I cut it off, and they started laughing. I thought that's kind of rude.
Yeah.
And but they said, give us about 5 minutes. Why don't you go down and see your buddy, who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Well, this Brant got me the interview. Went
Yeah.
down to his office, and he said, how'd it go? I said, man, it's terrible, bro. He said, well, what happened? I said, man, I didn't even know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And we went, so we talked, and all of a sudden someone knocked on the door, and I opened it because it was right behind me. And it was one of the managing partners, and he said, you want to come back in for a second? I said, sure. Went back in there, and I thought they were going to say, hey, thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
You back in a couple
Yeah.
of years, whatever. Because
Yeah.
I wasn't even finished with college. As a matter of fact, I had 33 hours left, and I still haven't finished that. I didn't because I had to work. I had to hustle.
Yeah, to go work. Yeah.
And I just
Dad's
put
the
it
same
off and
way.
kept putting it off. And I was like, crap,
Yeah.
they don't care. They never even asked me about it.
Yeah.
But they said, when can you start? And I was like, this is a joke, right? I said, I know y'all were laughing at me. And they said, no, 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 no. We were just laughing because you were so honest and just stopped the whole thing. I
Yeah.
admit.
I don't think anybody's ever done that, you know?
Well, I couldn't even try to fake something because I wouldn't even
Right.
be able to come up with the right words.
Right. Right.
And and then they said, we think you're going to do good in this business. And I'll never forget this. They said, one, you were very honest with us. You weren't in there name dropping.
Right.
We have a lot of people do that. And you weren't trying to come up with stuff when we were asking you questions. You just said, I didn't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know the answer to that. And but then the thing they said to me, which really kind of made me feel good about myself, is they said, we think you're very coachable, teachable,
Hmm.
and we can teach you this business. And you do have a great personality, even though I know you feel like, they said, we know you feel like you bombed in here, but
Right.
actually it's real. And I'll never forget it. I was like, I can't believe this because my guidance counselor basically told me, I just need to get a job. She
Well,
said, what do you plan on doing? I said, well, I guess I'm going to go to college. She said, I don't think that's a good idea. And she said, trade school, maybe. Now, looking back, I'm kind of going off the map here, going off the
yeah.
road just a little bit. But trade school is not a bad thing, man. Some of these guys
No.
got a
Yeah.
skill, brother, they make so much money. But
Yes.
she was saying it to me in a kind of degrading
Yeah.
connotation, right?
Yeah.
Right
Yeah.
word? Right. But the connotation was that I felt like she was kind of like, you need to go learn how to, work on an air conditioner or whatever. And I
Right.
said, well, and I
Right.
just was honest with her. I said, I'm not good with that stuff.
Yeah.
I know people who are, but that's not
Yeah.
me. Then she
Yeah.
basically just said, well, you just need to get a job doing something, find something. And I was really depressed about that.
Oh, I mean, it's not really good guidance, you know. It's like, it's not really, and it's different time, different age, so they
Yeah,
they don't they
look,
don't kind of, yeah.
I got it. I mean, look, I
Yeah.
was not a good student.
Right.
I was hardly there.
Yeah.
And if I told you what I made on my ACT the first go around, you'd laugh.
I
But
I don't even well, that's the thing. I don't even remember what I made on my ACT. It was so long ago, you know.
well, I remember distinctly because it was pretty low. And anyway, so when I got this job, I was like, went straight to my mom's house. Told her, Mom, I got hired. And she said, great. What is this job again? And I said, I'm going to be in the investment business. I'm going to be, I didn't even know what I was talking about. I was just like, I'm
Yeah.
working with stocks and bonds and stuff. She
Yeah.
said, wow, Joel. And my dad was sitting in there and he heard, he said, Joel, they hired you. I said, yeah, they did. My dad had a broker. You know what his name was?
Mm-mm.
Crook in Montgomery.
Yeah.
And he was a very
Yeah.
successful guy. His name was Crook
Yeah.
McInnes.
Yeah.
And but I remember him answering the phone going, hey, Crook. I thought he was, never knew who he was talking to. I just thought he
Right.
was it was like sarcastically calling some guy Crook.
Yeah.
But that was his broker's name. Wouldn't that be a terrible name to be a broker?
That would be. That would be. I knew uh well, I knew the girl, but I also heard of the guy. There was a guy, his last name was Crook. So
Crook?
yeah, yeah. You
Yeah,
probably know who I'm talking about. Yeah.
maybe so. And I don't know. I'll tell you, that business was fun for about 2 years. And then even though I was in that business for 17, 18
Yeah.
years,
Yeah.
after 2 years, 3 years, something like that, I found myself kind of operating in the gray a little bit.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, when it's just transactional type business, baby needs new shoes,
Right.
groceries need to be on the table.
Yeah.
If you go in there knowing that you don't actually really know how this is going to work out,
Right.
you're only basing it on the information you have
Right.
and the people telling the story to you.
Right.
And, we had meetings a lot, they'd come in and
Yeah.
talk about, hey, here's a new idea kind of thing. It wasn't like Wolf of Wall Street or Boom
Right.
Boom or anything like that, but
Yeah.
it was a little close.
Yeah.
Um, and so it was more to kind of get people excited about an idea and kind of get a story behind it, right?
Right.
You
Exactly.
can
Yeah.
pitch it.
Yeah.
But and I had people a few times, not many, a few times they'd ask me, what do you really, really think about this? Do you
Yeah.
think it's going to work?
That's a tough question.
And earlier on, I'd go, I don't know. All I know is that they're excited about this idea. I can't tell you, and obviously, I can't guarantee you anything.
Right.
But the more I was trying to get new accounts and make money, I had to kind of lean into it a little bit and say, no, I think this is great. In my
Yeah.
mind, it's going, do you really?
Yeah.
And long story short, I had this client, and he was a pharmacist, and I'd never met him, and he basically just gave me discretion to handle his account, but I would always call him anyway.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
Everything seemed fine when I talked with him. He always took my call, and he'd just say, Joel, do whatever you need to do.
Hmm.
Well, and don't get me wrong, I think because of that, I was able to act on stuff a lot quicker than having to call him all the time. But I was calling, telling him what we did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and what? All right, so not going into great detail.
Sure.
I put him on margin. All
Oh
right.
boy. Yeah. 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 A little bit of
So
risk.
a
Yeah.
margin is basically leveraging what you have, and so if you had 50,000, you could buy up to $100,000 worth,
Right.
right, at a
Right.
low rate.
Yeah.
Back then it was anyway. And we were way up. We were probably up over 2 or 3 period, 30, 40% on average every year.
Mm.
Because we dealt mainly with mid cap stocks in the
Yeah.
Southeast region, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I felt very confident in this one particular stock, and I said, we need to kind of load the boat here.
Yeah.
And I told him about margin. He said, again, he just said, do whatever you want to do.
Do whatever you want to do. Yeah.
I said, okay, I'll send you the paperwork. He sent it back. I could never read his writing. It should have been the first time. And so we did. And it wasn't like 3 weeks into that stock dropped by about 30%.
Oof. Yeah.
And it got to a level where he had a call,
Margin call.
a margin call.
Yeah.
And he owed X.
Yeah.
And so I called him and told him, I knew he wasn't going to be mad because he just never was. And he was just like, do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And so I said, we've never met. Can I come out and I can just get the check from him? I'm not going to tell you what it was, but how much it was. But
Yeah.
he said, no, I'd like to come to your office and see you there. I said, okay. He said, I'll come down tomorrow. I said, okay, what time you want to meet? And he said, 9:00. Good for you. And I said, yes, sir. Well, I go the next day, 9:00, not there. 10:00, not there. I stayed all the way through lunch
Yeah.
till 4:00. Market was closed.
Ooh.
And I was about to leave. And of course, there weren't any cell phones, so I didn't know if something came up
Right. Yeah.
and I thought this guy was an active pharmacist. He was still
Working.
working.
Yeah.
And 4:00, the receptionist was going to leave in like 15 minutes. And she called me on the buzz phone or whatever and said, Joel, you got someone up here to see. And so I said, okay. I knew, I was almost positive it was him.
Yeah.
I walked up and he was an older gentleman, probably in his mid 70s. And I guess I probably should have known that because I did the paperwork. But
Right.
anyway, I looked at him and he had half of his face was clean shaved, like literally here over.
Yeah.
The other half was like 3-day growth.
So like he forgot to shave his face or something.
One side of it.
Yeah.
And it hit me. Boom. Just like that.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I was talking with him. And I was like, oh, wow. I said, yeah, I was expecting it. And I said, did you have trouble finding it? He goes, I've been driving around all day looking for it.
Oh, wow.
Since like 7:30 that morning.
Wow.
And I sat there, man, and this overwhelming feeling of guilt came over me. And we talked, and I didn't act like I knew anything. We just talked, but in my mind, I'm like, oh my God. And as soon as he left, he was there about 15, 20 minutes. Very nice guy, but by himself. I'm thinking, how's this guy gonna get home?
Yeah.
But I didn't want to interject something that may not be correct. I just didn't know.
Right.
But it was pretty clear. So I go back to my office and I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, I started crying.
Yeah.
And so I went home, I told Clark about it, and she's like, oh gosh, Joe, that's terrible. And I said, yeah, I got to do something about this because, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So here's what I was thinking though. He's a pharmacist. And I'm thinking, if he's in this state of mind, he could be really mixing some stuff up at the pharmacy.
Yeah.
So I called the pharmacy. It was out in Elmore County, Wetumpka. And I said to the lady, I said, hey, this is Joel. She goes, oh, hey, Joel. And I said, hey, is so-and-so, is he the only pharmacist there? And she said, oh, no, so-and-so, he's not practicing anymore. His son took over. He's been retired for even before I started doing business with him. That gave me some relief. And I was like, okay, good. She said, why? I said, oh, and I said, well, can I speak to his son real quick?
Yeah.
And I laid it all out. I mean, even at the risk of getting in trouble, because I never had a non-discretion or, form signed or discretion for whatever.
Yeah.
And I just laid it all out. And I said, here's the deal. And I said, but the good news is he's still way up from where we started. And I said, but he came to my office yesterday and he said, oh, Joel, he was so nice to me, his son. He said, I'm so sorry. He goes, I knew he was talking with you. I didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
And I said, well, listen, I think I need to move. Y'all need to move that account somewhere in a bank or something. He said, no, we will do that. And I said, I'm so sorry. I just didn't know. And he said, oh, no. It's not your fault. Yeah. He said, look, he's up. I mean, right? I said, yeah. I was the guy probably wouldn't have done anything anyway.
Yeah.
I told him that the reason that he came to my office because he had to pay a margin call. He didn't understand that, so I had to go through that process. But man, I was so relieved and sad at the same time. And that's when it kind of dawned on me that I had drifted into this middle area.
Right.
Because everybody else was.
Yeah. And
now, I'm not blaming it on them.
No.
I'm saying that everybody else was trying to make a living too, and you can't just. Yeah. So, on the flip side of that, I started thinking about all these people I'd never met who were older that were just trading stocks with me. It was a transactional game, and it was, I had to make a living, so I had to come up with an idea. Fortunately, most of them were making money. And there was this lady in Montgomery. Her office was as a crow flies, maybe a mile and a half from where My office was in Commerce.
Oh, wow. Uh-huh.
And I'd never met her, been doing business for 3 years.
Yeah.
So I started calling every one of these people saying I'd like to come meet with them,
Yeah.
wherever they were.
Yeah.
And so here's the irony in all this. And I know how old she was. She was like 77 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I go to this office, and back then you have GPS, but basically she says
Sure.
across from the Greyhound bus stop, whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I look at this building, I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing looks like it's crumbling. And I walk in the door, and the first thing I see is the back of this older lady's head, and she's typing on a typewriter
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
But on the back wall was like keys for days, like
Oh,
thousands,
wow.
is what I thought,
Wow.
of
Wow.
keys just everywhere.
Yeah.
And the name of the company was such and such real estate.
Mm.
I was like, okay, I really didn't know if she sold real estate or but when I looked at those keys, I thought maybe she has rental properties. Didn't
Right.
know. This big, tall, redheaded lady came out of the office, 77, spunky. She said, Joel. And I said, so and so. I said, so glad to meet you finally. She goes, oh my gosh, you were so great, but you're a handsome young man. I was like, and so we go in her office, and still in my mind, I'm thinking about those thousands of what I thought were
Keys.
thousands of keys,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I'm also looking at the office. And again, she's 77.
Yeah.
And so I said, Miss So-and-so, I said, I'm curious. I know you're in the real estate business. I thought you might be a realtor. She goes, oh, no, 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 no. I said, well, what are all those keys? And she says, well, we have 800 properties that we own throughout Alabama.
Yeah.
And her husband had started this company. He had passed away.
Right.
It was 800. No, I was close. I was like, it's got to be like 1,000 keys.
Yeah.
And I said, oh, wow. I said, do y'all own them? She goes, we own about 75% of them. We manage the other 25% for
Shoot.
people. So sorry, because then I leaned into the conversation like this. I was like, I've been thinking, um, and I don't want to say this because of your age, but I got to think about this a little bit. We're trading, we're making little pops here and selling, and in reality, I'm making money, but
Yeah.
fortunately, they were too. But I don't want to say anything that's gonna get me in trouble. But a lot of people would say you're just churning and burning, which I really wasn't. I wasn't calling them after they bought something and it went down and told them to sell it. The
Right.
only time I did that at the end of the year, just for write-offs, against any gains,
Right.
for any losses against gains. But so I said, maybe be better if we took your money and found really some good fixed income ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And she started laughing. She goes, Joe, why are you telling me that? And I told her the story about the
Yeah.
other guy. And she said,
Yeah.
oh, okay, I got it. She goes, you're thinking I don't have my memory. I said, no, 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 I don't now. I mean, I just
Yeah.
still, I'm here, and this is
You,
on my mind. And I wanted to tell you. And
right.
she said, well, I appreciate you being honest. And she said, do you want to know what I have? And I said, well, I know you got about 650, 700 homes and another 25% you manage. So I can only imagine that that's pretty doggone well. She goes, no, I got more than that. I said, okay. And she said, you ready? And I said, yeah. 35,000 shares of Coca-Cola, 40,000 shares of AT&T,
Oh
30-something
my,
thousand shares of General Motors. This thing went on and on and on to the tune of about $85 million.
oh my gosh.
And I'm sitting there and I'm dumbfounded because the people you don't think have money,
Yeah.
typically are the ones that do.
Yes.
And to
Yes.
that tune, I said, no, wait a second. Did your husband invest all that money in over the years? She goes, no. I had an uncle that worked on Wall Street,
Ah,
and he didn't have any kids, and I was the only niece,
hair. Yeah.
heir, right?
Yeah.
But he had been buying stuff for her since she
The
was
whole
born.
time. Yeah.
And I was floored. And she said, now look, after all that, what you and I are doing, we're just having fun. He goes, I enjoy you calling me. And
Yeah.
I got to thinking about it, and it was something for her to do.
Right.
She wasn't touching that other stuff. If she
Exactly.
just sold it to any of it, she'd have had a massive
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
capital gains tax, right? Well, I
Right.
don't know. I mean, it depends on what the laws were. I can't remember what they were back then. I think if she inherited, the cost basis would have been at when she inherited. But I think because he put it in her name,
Right.
she owned it from a kid. Oh, no.
Right. But also you think about whichever shares she did have. I mean, the dividend alone, you knew she didn't. I mean, with that much, I mean, she really didn't even have to reinvest dividends, even if she didn't want to. I mean, she could have
No.
lived off the
She,
dividends.
oh,
And
no, brother, she
plus
was
the cash
making
flow from the rental properties. I mean,
she was making 4 or 5 million a year.
yeah, yeah,
It was nothing. And when I left, I went out and got in this pitiful Oldsmobile. I forgot what it was, like a 4-door sedan my dad bought for like 500
yeah,
bucks.
yeah,
Had tinted windows on it, and it was just a junk.
right,
And she comes around in this super freaking bad Cadillac,
yeah.
and she blew the horn. She said, "Joe, so great meeting you." I'm getting in this jalopy, and I'm thinking this lady doesn't have any money. But I
Yeah,
love that lady. She was the sweetest lady. I know now she's been gone, unless she's 110. I don't know. But
yeah,
I knew who was going to inherit it, and I actually knew that guy. And they never had kids because she couldn't.
yeah.
And there was one heir, and I knew him.
Wow.
And I thought this guy is going to go through that money like it's nothing. Maybe he didn't. I don't know.
Yeah. Wow.
But I'll tell you one more thing. I know I'm doing most talking here, but well, that's me though.
But you've got a lot of great stories, so that it's never, you know.
Well, I'll tell you this, and I've probably told you this too. I mean, but we're doing a podcast here, so if anybody ever hears it, they may not have heard the story. So that second guy I called that had that Jaguar in Gadsden that I opened an account with, the one that was going
Yeah,
down with his buddies to
yeah,
play
going
golf.
down the beach.
All
Yeah.
right. Uh, he wanted me to come up. This wasn't 2 years after we started doing business, and he wanted to take me to the country club, introduce me to some people.
Oh, that's nice.
And he owned a roofing company in Gadsden.
Hmm.
And so still no GPS. I'm having to look at maps and ask people where the street is, that kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So I get there, I'm in that old Oldsmobile. I mean, it looked like a hoopty. I mean, and is that what they're called? Hoopties?
It's
Or
close
jalopy.
enough. Jalopy,
So
yeah. I was
I
about
pull
ready for
up.
you to say jalopy, yeah.
Yeah, jalopy. So I pull up to his office, don't see any cars, but I see the name. And so I knew it was it. So I thought, well, maybe they're out back, parked out back or something.
Yeah,
So I cut the car off. I go to the door, try to open it, it's locked. It's a business, so I wasn't like trying to break in. I was just trying to
yeah,
go in. Maybe the secretary there was locked. I was like, dang.
right.
So I thought, okay, well, maybe he's just not here yet. Because I was supposed to meet him at 11:30, and he's going to take me to lunch. And
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was I was there like 5 minutes early. I didn't want to get there too early. I didn't want to get there late.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, well, I'll just go sit in my car and crank it up and cut the AC on. The car wouldn't crank.
Oh no.
I'm like, oh crap. And so I went and pulled the hood, and I went out there to check my battery cables. And this guy came by in a truck that said something motors, whatever. I mean, he worked automobile. He was an auto mechanic. And he rolled down his window and said, "Hey, buddy, you need some help?" And I said, "Man, yeah, I think either my battery's dead or something." He said,
Yeah.
"Well, hop in the car with me. My shop's right down the road." Well, I'd left the hood up on my car. And so we just go literally like quarter of a mile. And he got his cables. And when we came back, I see this guy out in front of the office, little
Hmm.
short guy,
Hmm.
on a cell phone.
Uh-huh.
I don't have a cell phone again. And this two years after,
Right.
still I didn't have a cell phone, but he did.
Yeah.
And he's pacing around. And I said, "Man, I think that's the guy I'm supposed to see." He goes, "Oh, okay, well, we'll just go up there and, we'll just jump it off or just leave it running." So he pulled up. We get out of the car. This guy's pacing like this on the phone in front of his office, back and forth, back and forth, not even paying attention to us pulling up. And so I'm walking up, and he turns around and looks at me, and I said, "Hey, so and so." I said, "Are you Mr. Crank?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, "Yeah, yeah." He said, "Are you Joel?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "Hang on, buddy. I'm calling a tow truck. Someone left this piece of shit parked out in front of my car, in front of my office." He said, "Someone left this piece of shit parked out in front of my
This
office.
is
I'm calling a
why.
tow truck." And I said, "Hold on, hold on." I said, "Wait a second." He said, What is it?" I said, "That's my piece of shit." He said, "Hold on a second. Never mind. I don't need you guys anymore." He hung up and he goes, "You're my broker and you driving this?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "I'm so sorry. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to leave the hood up." But the other guy that was so nice with the cables, he started laughing. He was like, man, he was falling out when he said, "Some guy left this piece of shit parked in front of my office." And anyway, that was my first meeting with him. But he took me to the country club, and boy, he was big shot.
Yeah.
And I appreciated that. So I ended up having a lot of business in Gadsden
Huh.
just from those two guys. And it
And
was
that's
great because they didn't know me.
right.
And I should have parked my car way down the road anyway. But it was comical, kind of. It was hurt my feelings a little bit, but I got over it quick because the
Yeah.
dude Gables was just falling out laughing. I told him we pulled up. I said, "I think that's the guy I'm supposed to meet with, man. This is embarrassing." He goes,
Don't
We'll just pull up and jump it off."
worry about it. Yeah.
Anyway, that's my story.
That's
Hey,
a
kind of going back to you though. I know
yeah.
that transition from your traditional banking side to the
Yeah.
mortgage side, you're a people person, and
Yeah.
um, and you're also very smart, and you're honest, and you'd been in that business before.
Right.
Um, I I knew it was going to be a good move for you,
Right.
and you know, I talk a lot about our issues, and
Yeah.
was Chris Hodges say, everybody has issues, and the ones that say they don't, that's their issue.
That's their issue.
They're
Yeah.
lying.
Yeah.
And so I've been through times where I'm just wondering, where are you, God?
Yeah.
And truth of the matter is, I was almost trying to blame him for my mistakes or what I thought were my shortcomings or that kind of thing. And
I
he's
have.
never failed me though.
No. 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 He
And
hasn't.
and dude, you have sent me some very uplifting stuff, and I know the change. I didn't know you before, and I know we've talked about this from that first one we did, but where we met in a bar,
Right.
and but you weren't there to party. You were there to open an account. I remember I
Yeah.
asked you,
I
I
was
said,
there
"Man,
to
what is
work.
up? What are you doing all that paperwork over on a Saturday?" And you said, "Well, bartender's a friend of mine. I'm opening an account for him."
Yeah.
And one thing led to another, and then he said to you, he said, "You know Hunter Sanders, don't you?" You said, "Yeah." And he
This
said,
is
"That's Hunter's
dad.
dad." And I was a William, Willie P.
Yeah.
And
But where it got a little bit deeper, where it got really interesting was when we both found out we both went to the same church.
that's right.
And then
Yeah.
we actually ended up leading at least one small group together.
Yeah, we did. It was grilling and chilling.
Yes, yes.
I burned all the hamburgers on the first day.
And it was the small group was about good or God. And we went through
That's
that
exactly right.
whole.
Yeah.
Yep,
And
yep.
we had, what, about
And my
seven, eight?
dad was in that
He sure was.
group. Yep,
Your
yep.
dad was a master chef, but barbecue was
Oh yeah,
his niche
oh
or
yeah.
specialty. Yeah.
He loved it so much.
He
Loved
was in
it.
all those
Memphis in May.
right, yeah.
Yeah,
Competition stuff.
yeah. He loved it so much. And I
Yeah.
don't know if I ever told you this story. I only went to one competition with him in May. In the
Really?
Memphis in May. Drove all the way out to Memphis. His dad was so excited. He's like, "You gotta come out to just one of them. Just one. Come out to one." I'm like, "All right, all right." So, well, okay. I'm gonna do this after work. Where am I gonna stay? It was like, well, there's a casino that's like about half an hour from there. I've already went ahead and booked us a room. So, can
Tunica.
you get it? Yeah, Tunica. It was in Tunica. That's right.
I know. Yeah. With Memphis.
Silver Star. I think it was a Silver Star, something like that. So I drove all the way out there, and when I get there to Memphis, I've never been to Memphis before, so it's down by the water and everything.
Yeah, Mud Island.
Yes, yes. And so I get
I
there.
remember Morgan Keegan was based out of there, so I
That's right. That's right. That's why you would know. So I get there. First thing he's doing, he's already starting to do the getting the grill ready and all that stuff. And so how they actually compete in the actual Memphis in May, their actual sponsors their entry fee. So it's like to the tune of I think 5 grand or more, and they supply them with all the food and all that stuff, and all they have to do is just basically cook for them that one night for their sponsor. So they do that. So I was there, I was helping out. I was so worn out by all that.
bet you
And
were sweating profusely. The
yeah,
humidity there is it's
yeah,
worse than Montgomery.
yeah.
It's
And
very
then
similar to Montgomery, the river town right through there, and
yes,
yeah, but
yes. And then
whew,
the
that
next
place was
day I
hot.
was helping out too. And so that year was one of the few years where we actually placed second in ribs that year.
Wow.
The one year I did go. Yeah.
Out of how many?
It's a couple hundred teams. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who were his uh people on his team? Were they from Montgomery or all over?
Well, say the person that he was on the team with is one of the founding members of the team, and so he is actually from Tennessee. He's passed away now, but that was actually my dad's roommate because they worked together. Dad did computers,
Yeah.
so barbecue grilling was an outlet for him. So when he started taking that up, I'm like, why are you doing barbecue grilling? You don't even. I mean, he was a more of a lighter fluid gas grill type of guy. He didn't know nothing about charcoal, but he
Well,
turned into this guy that knew
he
a lot
taught me
of
a
it.
lot that one day.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
burgers were flaming up, and I'm like, oh my gosh. But go ahead.
I mean, he loved it so much. He loved it so much.
Yeah, what's interesting is, Woodley, I think Woodley came to that
I'm pretty sure he did. I'm
because he
pretty
got
sure
to
he
know
did.
your dad. I think your dad was
Yeah,
kind of a transition period for that one thing that I can remember. May have been before that.
yeah,
You may have been taking him to
yeah.
church. I
No,
don't
no.
know.
He got to know Woodley. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and
Dad.
they talked a lot about cooking.
Yeah, they did. They did.
Woodley, when he has that, he gets on that one track mind thought. It's just
Oh
like
yeah.
he's on
He
it.
can't. Yeah, on it, on it.
And so he and your dad hit it off. I remember we were out there and Woodley was trying to help me with his burgers. I mean, it was a charcoal grill.
Yeah,
It was one of those Webers, I think.
yeah, yeah.
And I was just, those things were flaming up so fast. I think I had, uh, it wasn't ground chuck, but something that has a lot of juice in it. And it was
Right.
flaming.
Yeah,
And yeah, and Woodley used to come over all the time and cook with me. And well, he would
yeah,
cook. And
yeah.
what he would do is with that Weber charcoal grill, the round one, the
Yep,
traditional.
round. Yep.
He called it the Chinese wall because he put all the coals on one side. He said, "You got to build your Chinese wall here." all the coals would be on one side, and
Yeah.
then you top out and you put it off heat on the
Yep. Off heat. Yep.
but then your dad taught us how to light it without really using uh light
Lighter
fluid.
fluid. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, yeah, I think your dad really enjoyed that.
Yes, he did. He really did. And it's unfortunate that it was after he passed away that I really kind of started grilling more. But yeah, the
It's
people
okay.
still ask about his barbecue sauce to this day. And the last time I made it was the last time he went into the hospital. So one of these days I'm going to get around to making it again.
Well, you gave me some. I don't know if your dad made it
Yeah,
then.
he made it. He
Yeah,
made it.
it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I remember your dad was a cool guy.
Yeah.
I was actually there the day he got baptized.
Yes.
You invited me, and
Yes.
I was
Yes.
very honored to be there.
Yeah.
And I think George Goodwin was
Yep.
really good friend of his, and they were tight.
Yes. They were very close. Very close. In fact, it's funny that you say that because this past Wednesday, I'm still not as active as I used to be, but I was a small group leader for Faith to Find a Job.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I talked to
so,
Chad Bianchi the other day, and he said he sees you there.
yeah, so they used to do it at Shashi's, but when COVID hit, they started doing it through Zoom. And so it's just in a place now where it's pretty much just 100% Zoom now.
Oh,
And
okay. Wasn't it
yeah,
on Mulberry there for a while though?
yeah, yeah, it was at Shashi's. Yeah,
Oh, I thought you said Chappie's. Okay, yeah, Shashi's.
yeah, Shashi's. Um, but he told me a story of dad that I kind of knew, but I didn't really know. But when dad had his aortic aneurysm, he was in the hospital, and it was in 2013. And I was about 2012 is when I got. Well, I've been going to the church since 2010 in Montgomery. I got baptized in 2012. 2013 is really the year where everything. I would say I was a lot more into the church then than I ever had been. So when dad went into the hospital, well, I let Pastor Chris Irwin know about it. And so Billy Aaron went out there to see him.
Yeah.
And so he sat on the bench, kind of prayed, didn't know really what to say to my dad. But he went to see my dad and kind of prayed over dad and things like that. And it was somewhere around that point that I told dad, it's like, hey, dad, you got a lot of free time on your hands. Why don't you just kind of be active in this group, Faith to Find a Job? And that's when dad got involved and really started helping people with resume writing.
Yeah.
That was his gift.
Yeah.
And so what he said is what George has always said is that dad could sit and talk with somebody and help them see themselves in a way they never could see themselves. He helped them draw out things in the resume. And that was his greatest gift. And he impacted so many people's lives that the interesting thing is the day that he was getting baptized, again, this recommitment baptism, Billy Aaron also got his recommitment baptism that same day too.
I miss Billy. I would remember Billy was big. Billy's a big guy. I would
He
remember
was
that.
right behind dad.
I think I
Yeah.
just saw your dad, and then
Yeah.
came out, and I think I may
Yeah.
have given him a hug, and then I left.
Yeah.
But yeah,
No. But yeah, Billy just felt it on his heart to get a recommitment baptism. So it's just kind of ironic that, Billy, who had went out there to pray for my dad, would be getting a recommitment baptism the same day as my dad.
well, so you got to kind of throw in there that your dad was not a believer at all,
Well,
right?
at that point, no, he was a Baptist growing up in Jersey. But before now I thought he became Buddhist when he met my mom, but he had actually became Buddhist before he met my mom. So from 19 probably 1971 all the way up till I would say this when I started seriously going to church is when he started kind of thinking about it. But he was very active in the Buddhist community, was one of the founding members that formed the Buddhist temple that's in Montgomery.
I didn't even know there was a Buddhist temple in Montgomery.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, it's off of Edna Brake Lucas, over by the Kilby, whatever prison it is, off of Wears Ferry, over out in that area.
Oh, okay, yeah, out
Yeah,
east Montgomery.
yeah, East Montgomery. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And so there was I mean, my mom was treasury secretary person on there, and they helped handle the books and all that. I mean, they were very, very active in that temple, and there was a falling out, and I think that moment too opened Dad's eyes of he. I remember one of the memories that I remember was when he came to the church. One of the first times he came to the church, he said, "Wow, it's kind of like going to the temple because everybody's it just feels so peaceful out here."
Yeah.
And it just everybody was so engaged. Very different than when he grew up as a Baptist. So you know, he I think these small nudges that the Lord gave him, seeing his son obviously being so active in the church, kind of help him make that choice to choose God again.
I saw a lot of peace in your dad during that time.
Yeah,
And I didn't know him before, but you had told me stories. And
yeah,
we both got dad stories.
oh yeah,
It's funny, like you said, he helped a lot of people with, a lot of things. And uh my dad helped a lot of people. I mean, he would give money to people like it was nothing.
right.
But when it came to us, I'd have to steal his credit card.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
he was
and
asleep, I'd go in there and get it.
well, it's interesting the impact that our fathers or our parents have on us because there's a lot of things that I learned from my dad that I don't do or do differently because of how I grew up. And it's interesting how those things kind of change and impact because Evie and Bishop, they're going to learn things that I've learned through life and experience. And if they do what I want them to do, that'd be great. If they don't, then at least I've already seen or been down certain roads, so I kind of help them navigate past it. I mean, hopefully they don't want to. If I say, "Hey, don't do it," they won't do it. But that's part of being
Well,
a parent.
the truth is that I look back on some of that stuff, and had he been really involved in my life, don't get me wrong, my dad he was a good man. He was a great
Yes,
provider, and
yes,
he knew the Lord. He knew the Lord. He did, and
yes,
he later in his life, my mom used to have to drag him to church if he'd let her.
yeah,
Uh, but before you know it, if we weren't ready to go to church, he was already gone.
right,
He'd be already, time was, I was a stickler. I mean,
right.
I don't know. Fortunately, I didn't inherit that gift, but time, he wanted to be on time.
Right.
And even before time, like at church, he'd be the
Did he
first.
serve in the military?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, because I would think that yeah he did. Then that probably is where that got kind of built in
Yeah.
military background.
He never saw action, thank God, because I may not be here, but he was a
Right.
rear gunner on a B-24.
Okay. Air Force.
Yeah. Well, it was called the Army Air Corps.
Okay.
You
Okay.
got to remember,
Right.
I'm the baby of eight,
Okay.
and there was a long stretch between, well, there were 7 years. My closest sibling,
Oh
Carol,
wow. Yeah.
Jamie's
Jamie's mom.
mom.
Yeah.
Carol, my sister, she's closest to me. She's 7 years older. There was a 6 year gap between her and my other sister, Patricia. And then after that, it was like every 2 or 3 years. Like the
Wow.
first three were born within like a 4.5 year
Wow.
period.
Wow.
And so he was in World War II.
Yeah.
And what they didn't
Air
really
Force didn't quite exist yet.
know, it was the Army Air Corps.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that's right.
No, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, and he also became a cook too.
Yeah.
He cooked, but I got some pictures of him and his flight stuff, and pretty cool. He was also a boxer.
Really?
Yeah, he'd knock you out with that left hand. I can guarantee you.
Yeah. It's old Southpaw.
Yeah, he knocked my uncle out pretty. He knocked him out solid.
Oh,
Flew over the fence over in Cloverdale when they had a house there,
huh.
right on that corner across from Bud's Caddy Corner,
Okay. Yeah.
where the
Yeah. Yeah.
church
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
It's the
Yeah.
Playhouse. Now it's a
Yeah.
theater.
Cloverdale Playhouse. Yeah.
Right. You see the parking lot next to it.
Yeah.
That's where our house was.
Oh wow.
And my nephew, I won't mention names. I was born, I came into this world as an uncle. So
Right.
my oldest sister was 26, the oldest child. She was 26 and had two children. When I was born, my nephew was 6 years older than me, and my
That's
niece
wild.
was 3 or 4
Yeah.
years older than me. And I think they were all going out of town, and my nephew had been staying with my family that lived there. I never lived in the house. I grew up in Green Acres, but he
Right.
left the tub water running up on the third floor, and they were
Oh,
gone for a week,
oh
and
no.
it was horrible. It was wood, so it
Yeah.
did a lot of damage. And
Rotted and all that.
oh
Oh
yeah, and it
my
was a beautiful
God.
home. I've seen pictures of it, and of course, I went to kindergarten at that church right there
Yeah.
because we lived in Green Acres, but my family was real close to the people that lived right next door to the church on the other side.
Right.
And so anyway, yeah, so he sold it to the church to have a parking lot because there's a
Huh.
little side road right next to that church.
Yeah.
It's a very narrow
Yeah.
road,
Yeah.
and then there's houses on down on Clover Road, but they used to park down that side road, that little almost like an alleyway kind of thing, before they bought the house from my dad and turned it into a parking lot.
Huh.
I think that's a
That's so
song
cool.
too. Something I forgot who sang it. Something about something had taken something, turned it into a parking lot. uh, but yeah, he um, he looked like a Hollywood movie star, man. He did. He was a very striking guy. Um, heck, I grew up in bars, well, one in particular, the Capistrano in Cloverdale, the other side of Cloverdale.
Okay.
Remember, there's two sides to Cloverdale. There's, where Dirk's
Yeah. Yep.
Dirk's Filet and Vine, and
Yep.
about 3 or 4 down from that in the old part, not the new part where the Pine Bar and now the pizza place, Tomatino's, whatever's. But in the old
You
part,
know that's
that's
closed now, right?
is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which one's closed? Tomatino's or Pine Bar?
Yeah.
Both.
No, Pine Bar's still open.
Yeah. Well, man, I grew up right in there was a place called the Capistrano, and it was owned by David Capuano, who's a Jewish guy.
Okay. So he must be kin to Leon Capuano.
I think so. It's not his dad though. Maybe his uncle.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
probably.
he's been dead a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to tell you that story about he was Jewish and I'm trying to think of his wife. I want to call her Ruth, but it's not that. Someone told me not too long ago. She was Jewish too, and my mom and her became good friends because she used to have to go pick up my dad. And then he had his 4-year-old son in there with him and three. That's where I met William.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I kind of figured it had to be in Capistranos where you met William.
Yeah. I was in there rolling pool balls. My dad was up at the bar, and there was a lady named Annette there. Greenhall. She was Jewish too. She was the bartender waitress. She also worked for Joe's Deli, Joe P. Hall. He was a Jewish guy. But she had great nephews and a great nephew and great niece that were twins that were on Little House on the Prairie.
Really? Huh.
And it was a boy and a girl, but
Right.
the boy grew his hair out, and as little kids, it's kind of hard to manage them. It's
Right.
kind of like was show Full House and had the two girls, the
Right.
Olsen twins.
Yeah.
That twins is the best way to do it because when
Right.
he starts acting up, you can
Just
throw it
swap
out
them
the window.
out. Yeah.
But in this case, it was a boy and a girl, but they interchanged them because they had the boy grow his hair out.
Long hair.
And I'll
Yeah.
never forget she told me that story later on. I was like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. I ran away from kindergarten my very first day. I walked in at that church. My mom dropped me off. And I told you I was good with directions. So I walk in there. Nobody talks to me. All the kids are standing in a line.
Yeah.
And there's a big kid, I can't remember his name, but he was, just being a typical kid saying he was the
Yeah.
only one that said anything to me. It was mean. Teachers
Yeah.
never said one thing to him. I'm just standing there. No one says anything. I'm there for like 5, 10 minutes, nothing.
Yeah.
I said, screw this.
Yeah, I'm
And I
going
walked
home.
out the door and I walked down Cloverdale Road, through Cloverdale
Oh,
Park, right
wow.
there where the church, First United Methodist is,
Yeah.
on down the road to the Capistrano. And I was there by 10 o'clock. I think kindergarten started at 9, it was like 9 to 12 or something like that.
Yeah.
And so by the time I got there, I mean, I was probably lay. Well, I know when they found me, I was laying underneath a big oak tree right out in front of where Clark's
Oh,
family, they didn't live there at the time, but their house in Cloverdale, that's where
huh.
the former our next door neighbor or their next door neighbor found me out there leaning against a tree looking at the birds.
Yeah.
But I went to the Capistrano and I went in and Annette, she was cross-eyed.
Hmm.
She said, "Joe, what are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, my mom's at the laundromat down here. I just walked in, say hey, whatever, whatever kid talks at that age."
Yeah.
And she said, "Okay." She said, "You want a Coca-Cola?" And I said, "Yeah." It was a little 6-ounce bottle Coke.
Yeah.
Hour and a half into it, she goes, "Joel, is your mom still down at the laundromat?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I better go check on her." Well, I was lying. She wasn't at the laundromat.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I started making my way back to kindergarten. I was like, I didn't know anything about time.
Right.
I didn't know, but anyway, I got back. I was getting there, and there was a big tree out right in front of Hamp and Jenny Lou's house. They didn't live there at the time, but
Well,
I
isn't
just
that
laid there and
ironic
had
that that tree, how that, years from then, that you would be right in that same
right.
area. That's
Yeah,
so
it
that's
eventually
so
got
cool.
uh, when the hurricane came through. It was in the 90s.
Was it opal?
Yeah, I think so. I can't remember, but anyway,
Yeah.
that tree crumbled,
Mm,
and man, that tree had to have been well over 100 years old.
mm,
But her name was Betty Shaw. That was her name. She pulled up. I had my hands behind my head, my knees pulled up, and I was just looking up at the birds. And she
yeah.
pulled up and she said, "Joel." And I looked over and said, "Hey." She said, "Where have you been?" And I didn't know what to say. I said, I just, I don't know. My mom didn't pick me up, so I came down. She goes, "Joel, that's not true. Your mom's at the school right up there, and she is crying her eyes out." And
Oh
she
no.
got mad at the teachers. My mom never said a cuss word, but when it came to her kids, you better watch out. And she was mad about it. And so she drove me back up there, and I was like, "Oh no, what am I gonna say?" And so I just told her the truth. And
Yeah.
then she'd already been arguing with him, saying, "Well, I dropped him off. I saw him walk in. And why didn't y'all even check on him? I mean, how could he just disappear?" I mean, she was
Right.
freaking.
Yeah.
And
No. Like any good parent would, you know?
right.
Yeah.
So when I told her what happened when I got up there, she was really crying, not mad at me,
Yeah.
crying, just like she thought someone
She's
kidnapped me.
yeah, she
And
she was just so glad that you were okay.
yeah, but then she went back in there and told him that he told me, and I told my mom the truth about everything, man.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, so much so that she finally told me one day. She said, "Joel, you don't have to tell everybody everything." And I said, "Well, you told me to always tell the truth." It's like the first time, and look, it's okay if I say this, but first time I smoked marijuana, I was 12 years old.
Right.
My mom had let William and I smoke rabbit tobacco. It was some kind of weed thing that grows that people used to smoke, not to get high or anything like that, but
Right.
made you sick. And we got sick on these corncob pipes up at Lefty, Alabama. We wanted a corncob pipe. We were like 8, and she said, "Okay, why do you want that corncob pipe?" It was at the drugstore. I said, William was the one behind it. I'm gonna blame it on him. He really wanted it. And we were like, "We're gonna get that Prince Albert stuff in a can and put some in the pipe." So she goes, "Oh no, 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 don't do that." She says, "I'll buy you all these corncob pipes. We'll go over to my brother's house, or my Uncle George, and he broke out the rabbit tobacco. We both got sick as dogs. So she thought that was gonna nip it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it kind of did for me. But when this guy showed up, I was with another good friend who lived down the street from me, and he had marijuana. I didn't know what marijuana was.
Right.
He said, but man, this is funny stuff. And I thought, okay, I've smoked rabbit tobacco. All right, I can do this. Anyway, so I go home afterwards. I mean, of course, it didn't affect me. I didn't even know how to nail that stuff. But
Yeah.
um, I go home. My mom goes, "What you been doing?" I said, "Oh, I've been down at the ditch with so and so and so so smoking marijuana." She said, "What?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Joel, we got to talk." And from that conversation, there is why I never tried any hard drugs in my life, because she knew how to trigger in my head. I was 12 things that would keep me from doing it. She said there's certain things out there, and of course, I had 7 siblings older than me, so she knew what stuff was.
Right. Yeah.
She mentioned stuff like LSD and cocaine and other stuff. She said you could lose your mind and be in a mental hospital for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And I was 12, I was about to go into junior high school, and I was like, man, I don't want to lose my mind. I don't ever do that. So I never did. It was such an impression on my brain that I was like,
Yeah.
no, I love life too much to end up in a mental
Right.
place doing
Yeah.
something stupid. So I just never did it. I never did that. I never did. I was fortunate that that
They
was
don't even
ingrained in my
have
brain.
they don't have psych wards anymore, do they? Like
No,
true like
but
mental health.
well, they do. They do. There's one, and it used to be Mead Haven, and then they changed the name of it and moved it down. Was that Norman Bridge or Narrow Lane? It's across
Okay.
Southern Bypass.
Okay.
I can't think of the name of it, but yeah, I mean, pretty much hospitals kind of fill that role there.
Right.
There's
Right. That's what
always
I'm saying.
a psych floor. And,
Yeah.
you know, look, back then, if someone was crazy, you just thought, oh, that's terrible. I don't want to be like that.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
kind of taboo to get help. And
Right. For
I'm
your
really
mind.
switching gears now, but the thing is that mental health, I would rather have something physically wrong with me than deal with those thoughts in my head. And I've had depression,
Right.
and it is real.
Yes, it is. It
It's
is.
not strap up your boots and get up and go. It's not that. It's
No.
paralyzing,
It
debilitating.
is parallel. It is. It is. It's not something that can just there's not like a you can just will yourself emotionally to be normal again. It's something that it it kind of just sits on you.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way of describing how it feels, it's something that it just kind of lingers, and you're not yourself, and you got to do these things, but then it's like a stalled car. You know what you got to do, but you just don't. For
Well,
lack of a better
yeah,
way,
it's like you don't know how to
feel
fix
like
it.
yeah,
And
yeah.
sometimes back then there wasn't. I went through it as a young person, and my mom basically said she took me to she took me to see a doctor, just a regular doctor.
Hmm.
And he asked me to explain what was going on. I could really put it into words. I could barely
Right,
put it into words.
right.
And this is what he told her. He asked me to leave, and he talked with her, and she came out, and she said, "Well, first of all," he said, "you have a real hard time paying attention." And and I said, "Well, okay. What's that? What does that mean?" He said, "He told me to get you to take Benadryl." And I
That's
was
gonna
like, I
make
was
you
a little
sleepy.
hyperactive back then. I was hyper
Okay.
until I kind of went to puberty or whatever, and I still had, and still to this day, it's more inattentive, not hyper
Right.
dreamer, daydreamer kind of guy. I was always looking out the window, and I don't know what. I just wasn't a good student, so I just wasn't paying attention or didn't want to. I don't know what was primary or secondary, but and then he said, and I can't tell you what's going on inside his head. He couldn't really tell me, but she told me this later that he didn't tell her this. She said, I think you got a chemical imbalance, Joel.
Huh.
And I said, okay. That didn't sound good. I was like, well, what does that mean? She said, it'll work itself out. I said, all right.
Yeah.
Boy, that was the longest year of my life, man. I faked the whole seventh grade.
Yeah.
My whole seventh grade, I faked. I wasn't sleeping. My mind was going 100 miles an hour.
So
Obsessive.
that's like is that about roughly about junior high?
Seventh grade.
Yeah.
It was
So
like
about
not too long
13.
after I smoked that marijuana, and she said I could lose my mind. I think it may have triggered something in my head thinking that I was going to lose my mind.
You were gonna lose your mind. Yeah, you started obsessing about losing your mind. Yeah.
Right. And
I can
then,
see that. Yeah.
yeah, but then these obsessive thoughts, man, I just couldn't turn it off. And
Yeah.
I couldn't sleep. And, I'd go to school and, just try to make it through the day till
Yeah.
it got to the point, man, where after almost a year of that, I'll never forget. I went in my bedroom and I got on my knees and I said, God, I want you to check me out. You either heal me or you check me out. I
Yeah.
can't do that to myself. I can't do
Right.
that to my family. So,
Right.
but you can. You can take me or make me better. One or the other. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And man, I just never forget from the top of my head to the tip of my toes, just this incredible feeling came over. It was like a euphoric feeling,
Hmm.
but it was very calming. I was just tingling all over.
Hmm.
And man, I crawled up in my bed. I never took naps. I never
Hmm.
slept that whole, man, I wasn't even sleeping.
Hmm.
I'd wake up just like, man, I cannot deal. As a young person, I didn't know what to do. I probably needed
Was it
medication.
anxiety or something? Do you
It
think
was
it
like
was?
obsessive OCD,
Yeah.
anxiety. It was
Yeah.
just racing thoughts. And it was also
Yeah.
really bad thoughts about God,
Hmm.
just really like I was going to go to hell and all this stuff. And
Hmm.
it just wouldn't stop. It would not stop. But that moment, at that time, I was serious. I didn't want to live. I didn't want to live, man.
Hmm.
I couldn't do it. All I thought was, this is this me faking all this is going to come into the light.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm going to be this person that's in this mental hospital for the
In
rest of
mental
my life.
hospital. Right. Right. Yeah.
So, your mind is very powerful.
It is.
And also, you got to remember, this is a spiritual thing. I came to know the Lord at 9 years old. And I know what I know. It was
Right.
at a David Wilkerson, not Wilkinson, but Wilkerson. He wrote a book called The Cross and the Switchblade. And it was at Lee High School. It was kind of like a tent meeting in a high school. And he
Hmm.
told the story. And I was with William and Ray Burt and my mom. I started bawling crying right there when he in the altar call. I went down, I bawled crying. They were looking at me like I was an idiot. On the way home, they were like, "Why are you crying, man? What's wrong with you?" I didn't know really what sin was, other than I got in trouble for certain things.
Right. Yeah.
But I knew then,
Yeah.
I knew it, that God had saved me from something.
Yeah.
I only know He saved me from this flawed world. I accepted Jesus that day. And so when all that started happening, man, it was like the longest year of my life. I kept expecting to wake up one day and it ought to be away. And it
Hmm.
didn't. It didn't
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
It got progressively worse. And that day, boy, I was just like, I'm done.
Yeah.
You can take me. If you're there, take me. If you're not going to heal me, take me. He showed up. I fell asleep for about 2 hours. I'd just gotten home from school, so it was like 4 o'clock. And I don't like taking naps to this day, but I did sleep for a couple hours and I woke up and 75% of all that stuff was completely gone.
That's a miracle.
I couldn't even, it wouldn't even let me think it.
Yeah.
It just showed up. Now, there was some other little stuff, but God sometimes doesn't take everything away. He needs to, it's kind of like, the Apostle Paul had something
Talking
going on.
about the thorn in the side. Yeah.
Right. And of course, what did I do? After that, started feeling better. I get back into junior high, you don't want to be. I told a lot of people. Like I said, mom, I told people everything. That was whatever came to my mind, I told them. But you find yourself, you're at that age, man. And girls are around, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying I was drinking or doing anything at that age. I wasn't. Other than the one time I smoked pot at 12, but
Good.
it didn't do anything to me. But no. So I knew that God loved me, and for the life of me, I did not want to fail Him,
Mm.
but I did. But yet, that was my thinking,
Yeah. Yeah.
wasn't His.
Right.
It's always me. It's always me.
Yep. We are our own worst enemy. And that's the hard part of the journey is understanding that you gotta know yourself.
Yeah, it's tough because God's ways aren't our ways; they're just better, right?
Yep.
And His timing's not our timing, and that
Nope.
is the worst part of it.
Time is the hard part. Yes, that's the part. Everybody wants to talk. They love the the sowing and the reaping, but when you farm something, you have to put the time in. If you enjoy planting the seed and you love taking the fruit and the vegetable and the harvest, but everybody seems to forget that it takes time to get from point A to point B, and as humans, we forget that. We just want
Yeah,
it like
but
right now.
and yeah, you always look back and go, it worked out. But when you're in the middle of that season,
Oh man.
you feel like God's as far away as He could ever be,
Right.
and you're
Yeah.
like, is He just forgotten me? Is it? What is it? I mean, why? How can I be patient when I can't even? I don't even feel like getting out of bed.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we definitely need each other. No man's an island. If we only needed ourselves, we would have just ourselves. But that's why the Lord does use people to kind of reach out to other people. To just, hey, I was just thinking about you. I was just checking in, make sure you're doing all right. You know.
Well, you do a great job at that, and I have to apologize to you because I don't know, man. I talk a lot. That's true. I mean, I know when not to talk, but when I'm in an open conversation with you, I tend to be the one doing most of the stuff. So forgive me. And, I know I've said this numerous times to you, but uh, hey, man, what's going on with you? I mean, because I know I've been telling you everything and you hadn't said a whole lot. So I feel like we're on the phone call right now. This probably shouldn't be something to be on here. But,
But
you the thing is that, yeah, you're right. And I need to check on you. Well, when it comes down to the nitty gritty, I will jump in it,
oh yeah, oh yeah.
first. I'm
I've
gonna,
never. I mean, I remember when we first started really talking to each other. That was kind of the one thing that you would say the most is like, "Hey, sorry, I feel like I'm hogging the conversation," and that's in some ways, in part, that's true. But the other part of it that you have to understand is I grew up as an only child, so it was always just me. So for the most part, I'm used to just listening and sitting back. And I'm by nature I'm shy too. So I'm most of the time if I'm going to somewhere, an event or something, I don't have a desire to go out and shake somebody's hand and all that. It sometimes I have to emotionally and mentally push myself to do it. Over the years I've gotten better at it, but ultimately at the end of the day, I have a good time just sitting back and letting everybody talk. I mean, I've gone to lunch with some of my coworkers, and everybody they're all cutting up, saying stuff, this, that, whatever. And then they all look over at me like, James, you got anything to say? It's like, no, I'm just having a good time. I'm just enjoying myself. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't have to say anything.
Well, I think with me, because one, I'm the baby of 8, and just having nephews and nieces, that I'm almost like the only child, the oldest child, and the youngest, because I had nephews and nieces that were younger than me,
Right,
and they were, but like within 3 or 4 years of my age.
right,
And so they were like little brothers and sisters.
right.
And then I had a nephew and niece are older than me, and my nephew, used to beat the crap out of me all the time. And, what happened to you? My nephew beat the crap out of me. Your nephew? He was the baddest dude I've ever known. But yeah, but so I'm used to having to kind of maneuver my way around stuff.
Right. And that's,
And,
and so being in a larger family, you've got to talk, and we're used to talking in general. And then also too, you got to get your word in too. So you got to be the one talking, you know? So that's, that's kind of how it is. And so like I said, it doesn't bother me at all. I mean, you could, you could say the whole conversation and me not even say a word. It doesn't bother me.
well, be honest with me if it does, because
I will. I will.
because I
I
don't want
have.
something to be building
I
up
have.
inside of you going, I need to
Yeah.
talk, and he's doing all the talking.
No, I have. You've seen me do that. You see me jump in when I needed to talk. Yeah.
But you know me, I'm also a protector though. Something's going on with my friends. Uh, the big thing for me, and I've said this, I've said it once, it's a million times, is loyalty.
Right. It's a
And
very, very, very valuable, uh, for lack of a better word, commodity, especially in this life, in this world now, is loyalty. And it's hard to find people that are just first honest and do what they say they're going to do, but two also loyal. Like when your feet are in the fire, you know.
well, sometimes it's hard for people to even say something though. They don't want to say
Yeah,
it. And that's
yeah,
what bothers me the most, because, you know, um, I don't want anybody hurting, man. I don't like that.
right. Yeah, but that's also a part of life too. I mean,
Mm.
you know.
Let's end on a good note, man. We've been talking this for I don't know how long, but anyway, first I'll tell you this: I love you, brother,
I love you too.
and
So far, just two grandkids so far, just two.
it's two, yeah, two beautiful granddaughters, and man,
Yeah,
I can't tell you, it's just amazing.
I can't
And
imagine.
yeah,
Yeah,
I love them so much, and I'll tell you, I'm so proud of my daughter and my son-in-law. He's such a good man. He loves my daughter. He loves those kids. He's a
that's
great
awesome.
provider. He's
That's awesome.
level-headed, and
Yeah,
and Trent is just the best mom. She
really,
was born to be a mother.
that's great.
Yeah,
That's great.
and three daughters not married, and Hunter's doing fantastic. And so I'd figure out what to pay for some weddings. I won't have to pay for his, I don't guess, or I don't know. I'll do whatever he wants me to do.
Right.
Hunter looks
Uh,
great. I
Does he?
think
Is he seeing anybody now, or is he still kind of not really?
no, he's still where he is, and
Yeah.
working on himself. And man, I'm so proud of him.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
looks great, and he's just
He does.
in such phenomenal space
He
right now.
looks so like a 180 difference, a completely different person.
Yeah, he is a completely different person. I
Yeah.
wouldn't say 180, because that'd be perfect if you could turn it all the way around.
I
And if
thought
you
that
went
was
all the
too.
way around, you'd be back at the same spot. So he's at
Yeah. Yeah.
he's doing great. He looks good. He's healthy. He's playing golf again. He's when you hear him hit a golf ball, it's like hearing a pro hit one. It's a
Yeah.
total different sound. And he hits the
I
ball so flush.
didn't he had surgery a while back, didn't he?
Yeah, he
Everything's
had
good from that surgery?
everything.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So he, yeah, love Hunter. I, I'm, My mom took him on just like it was nothing, and she loved on that boy. She had him watching Gospel Bill. Just one of these Christian kind of,
Yeah.
you could just tell the budget was very low,
Right. Yeah.
but he loved it. And my mom was a big believer in not hovering over someone, right? Like protect them. She
Mhm.
just trusted, you know. I drive over the one day, he's 3 years old, he's on the roof of her house blowing the leaf.
What?
Yeah. And then one day Clark and I are riding down the road and I see this white Cadillac coming down this Eldorado. Hunter's in their lap driving the car. She just, I said, Mom, you can't do that. And she goes,
Yeah.
no, Joel, he's smart. He's smart. You don't have to worry about him. He had an axe out there just hammering away at some wood in our backyard. And I was like, Mom, I think it'd come off. She said, not slinging it that hard. He's going to be fine. And, I mean, she would let me walk to the Montgomery Mall.
Right.
It
Right.
just like, okay, you're going to learn and, you're going to, and I think part of that is why some people take that freedom and they do idiotic stuff.
Right.
Me, it was always a measured kind of thing, man.
Measured. Yeah.
I'm not sure I'm going to do that
Yeah.
because she trusted me.
Right.
Um, she,
Mm.
and I had the best. Everybody has the best mother, but I'll tell you that lady, I saw God through her eyes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Unconditional love. And I could tell you story after story after story. And I have, but if it's part of your podcast, I'll throw it in there again. But unbelievable. Anyway, I love you, man.
I love you too, bro.
At a hop, bro. All
All
right.
right.
How do I get off this
Bye.
thing? I forgot.